I guess being 8 weeks out, I guess one thing I find funny is it seems to be I'm counted out in everybody's prediction. I'm not in the top 5, or I'm 5th. And I get it. I didn't do the Olympia last year, so y'all don't know how it was going to stack up. And obviously, according to the world, my New York Pro package was underwhelming. So I get it. But I don't know how many times I got to continue to prove myself. I mean, I already solidified that, but I don't mind being the underdog. I don't mind being counted out. Again, that's where I thrive the most. So come stage, come 8 weeks, I guess everyone will see once again. So
listen, at the end of the day, they're all great competitors, but I'm coming to take everybody out.
This is the second year in a row that I gotta miss the Olympia that I worked so hard for. And there's so many things that come into play because it's like, all I want to do is win the Olympia.
Dear me, people, it is me, the LUI. Hi, saluted be on a nightly, that is. And that was Mr. Nick Walker. 3 clips of him, rather recent. Well, he seemed quite confident merely 3 weeks ago, right? And he looked rather different in shape, and he was, definitely certain to achieve some good results and prove haters wrong at the biggest stage of them all, Mr. Olympia. Quite frankly, I have no idea if Nick Walker knows who I am because he's quite young. I just checked. This kid was born in 1994. No pun intended. He's really a kid. I have a proper recollection of Mr. Olympia in 1994. It was quite eventful. Now, Nick is playing the mass game. Now, let me aware him if he does not know, because he was not even born back then. This whole thing started when Nick was -1 years old. It happened in 1993. There was a guy named Dorian Yates. He elected to gain so much mass in merely 1 year, he shocked the world. Maybe Nick, since he is a bodybuilder, must know a thing or two about the famous, legendary black and white pictures of Dorian Yates, which were published on Flex magazine a few weeks prior to Miss Olympia, right? He shocked everybody. We have never seen such a physique. Now they're not that eventful because everybody is like that. But back then, we're coming from the Lee Haney era. And while even though he won the 1992 Helsinki Miss Olympia, he was rather small. And even Kevin Levrone, who placed second, he was marvelous. Both of them were quite cut, but they were still coming and banking on the era of Lee Haney, so they did not reach some crazy level. But then on his second Miss Olympia, he came much bigger. So much so that he has beaten the sensation of that year, namely Ken Flex Wheeler, who came up after 2 wins, the Ironman and also the Arnold Classic. And he was very good, but he could not box versus this new mass of a guy, namely Dorian Yates. So what you are right now, Mr. Nick, has to do directly with that epoch where you were born pretty much. Now, there is something similar that happened to Dorian Yates on the year you were born, 1994. He had a mishappen, just like you are having a mishappen right now. Few weeks before Miss Olympia, guess what? Exactly on the same period, about 3 to 4 weeks prior to Miss Olympia, he had a major injury. He tore his left biceps. He elected to continue his prep, and sure enough, he came with a torn biceps. The first ever bonanza life we saw was in that year. His stomach was distended for the first time ever, Dorian Yates, and while he still won, and it was quite frustrating for Mr. Sean Ray for good reason. First time we had an injured Miss Olympia winning with a small gut. But that's that. Now, obviously, the third video of Mr. Nick where he was crying today is quite eventful because you saw that he literally, with all due respect, ballooned. He gained a lot of weight. compared to the previous videos where he was quite lean and looking, definitely rolling towards a stage-ready shape, right? So chances are he gained a tremendous amount of weight, Bonanza life and all. The reasons, you tell me. Did he binge eat? Most likely. Now, obviously, these guys, it's no secret, they consume all kinds of supplements which will induce a ballooning effect, a rebound, so to speak. The insulin rebound will be a sight to behold. But this video is all about health. Because last time I checked, maybe Nick does not recall, but back in the day there were some magazines that no longer exist. I just published a video today showing the library has no more magazines of bodybuilding. But let me aware you, Mr. Nick, back in the day, there was the most famous magazine of bodybuilding was called Muscle and Fitness. Fitness, meaning being fit. Well, no pun intended, but with all due respect, as of late, actually in the last 2 decades or so, bodybuilding was not reflecting people being fit. Let me aware you, Mr. Nick, because most likely you don't know who I am. You were too young when I was doing bodybuilding vlogs. I was the best one, believe you me. But I was also the very first one in the world, in the history ever of this planet, making videos about RIPs. Rest in peace, this bodybuilder or that bodybuilder. Right? I was the very first one. And then I stopped. Not because I got bored, but they were too numerous. I stopped counting, right? They were dropping like flies. Now, when you were 1 year old, Mr. Nick, 1 year old, 1995, Miss Olympia, something else happened. Do you know what I'm talking about? Allow me to aware you. Nasser happened in 1995. Same magazine, Flex magazine, posted the difference that he achieved in merely 1 year, from 1994, when you were born, to 1995. He gained a tremendous amount of mass. He became a mass monster. He was heavier than Dorian Yates on stage. Kevin was big too, so Kevin placed second, and Nasser El Sombati became a sensation. He placed number 3. He was the crowd favorite. And then this really put a lot of steam into the mass era. It started. It was never gonna stop after that, pal. Right? Now remember, I told you Nasser became a monster in 1995. He passed away in 2013. Right? He was still big. Some say that the doctors told him he must stop that craze of being big, and his kidneys were no longer loyal to his demise. He was very intelligent. He was an engineer, right? And well, you play, you pay. You play, you pay. There is no free ride. Now, only Nick knows what's happened with his health errors. There must be some good reasons, I would assume, for him to put a stoppage to his prep merely a few days before Miss Olympia, right? And that is that. Hopefully he's wise enough to take into consideration his very health, right? He seemed quite passionate about winning Miss Olympia. Well, frankly, I don't want to beat the guy when he's down. But since I was making successful vlogs about bodybuilding, I think maybe I know a thing or two about this pageant. And I contend very seriously that maybe I know more than the current guys, because back then, Mr. Nick, when you were born, we had no internet. We were buying magazines, the one I was mentioning, Flex Magazine, Iron Mag, and also Muscle and Fitness. We have only still pictures. We were looking at these pictures and keeping these magazines for years. For years, we don't throw them away. Looking at these pictures relentlessly. So we study every single pose. It is memorized in our genetic memory, for real, right? And while maybe we know a thing or two about potential, right? Some guys are gifted, so they have what it takes to be Miss Olympia. Phil Heath is a genetic freak, right? Like him, we see a few. Dorian was also a genetic freak. Everybody was. Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, and the like, right? And when they fall, sometimes these guys, there is a guy who is very good and he will basically jump because the best guy was not in shape. It happened in 2008 when Dexter won, right? Because Jay was off. But usually this competition is always taken by genetic freaks that have an edge that the other guys cannot sustain. Well, you need to ask yourself, this is between you and yourself and being realistic if you are mature enough. Do you think you are a top tier genetic bodybuilder? There is no pun intended, right? There are guys who were superb, who placed second in Mr. Olympia. A mass monster like Branch Warren placed second in 2009 to the best shape of Jay Cutler, but he never won. You see? Richard Gaspari placed second to Lee Haney. Lee Labrada placed second to Lee Haney, but he never won. Sean Ray placed second several times. So did Kevin Levrone. You see? Ask yourself. There are some limits. Maybe we should not breach them and push too much. Again, you know what is your case right now. You know if you have some health concerns or not. Well, it's up to you. I think you're old enough. You're 30 by now. So hopefully you will take some good decisions. And whatever you take, hopefully, I wish you well. Hopefully it will not be detrimental for your health. For it is. Health is wealth. It is the biggest asset we have in this lifetime. And that's it. This is just me, Louis Marco. Well, if you don't know me, I used to be a bodybuilder, blogger back in the day, and then I took an arrow to my knees, baby, please. And then I retired because I'm old. I'm pushing 50, right? I wish you that you were old, you get old very well and you age very well. Hopefully you'll reach 50 like myself in a healthy way, right? God bless you. I'm still lifting. I consume some supplements as well, right? Creatine, BCAAs, EAAs are very good, right? And also some superfood for good measure. God bless you. Be saluted. Let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think about health in general when it comes to bodybuilding. Do you think that some guys most likely and most often are pushing the envelope maybe too much by consuming a lot of substances, maybe please to the very detriment of their health, right? As you guys recall, I was an advocate for classic physique, and thankfully they created the category. And while I do contend very strongly now that the classic physique guys generally are very, very healthy. When I was backstage in a bodybuilding show, I was in Kuwait. What people don't know that these guys backstage, the big bodybuilders, most of them were throwing up. They were just throwing up. And I was seeing the physique guys moving around. They were healthy. Physique guys also, they're on all kinds of Skittles, but not the same amount. And they were healthier. They were not throwing up. And I'm not going to name names basically of big bodybuilders that I've met in real life because some of them are still competing, but I was just seated next to them and their odor, their scent was literally chemical. It's like I was next to a bionic. If you guys were next to a pro, probably you know what I'm talking about. I was like next to a bionic being. They were looking chemical. And that's that. And these guys cannot basically walk with me. They cannot walk. They're just too big. I was walking around with one guy, pretty much. He's a classic physique guy. He plays second in Mr. Olympia, Mr. Arash Rahbar. We were moving about. He can do his thing. He can move about because he is not that huge, right? He's muscular. It was not natural, but it's a different ball game. And that's that. So these are food for thoughts, guy. You play, you pay. You play, you pay. And well, since I retired from bodybuilding in 2016 or so, almost 9 years and counting, God knows how many bodybuilders passed away. May they rest in peace. Food for thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section, guys, and be absolutely saluted.